Salutations, everyone, and welcome. Today is the fourth episode of Design Therapy, Bier, German. Shout out to Hania. I am your host and facilitator, along with my co creators, Mary Gribbin and Jose Caballer. And today's episode is brought to you by CORE, a framework for brand strategy fundamentals. As always, we appreciate and love likes and subscriptions. We want to be able to continue bringing you guys incredible content. So, real quick, just to dive in what CORE is, CORE Discovery is a simple way to help any brand understand, prioritize, and focus on a clear vision and plan to help them achieve their goals. It's branding for the 21st century. CORE allows for you to align the three essential components of every brand, which is culture, goals, and the audience, the users. If you're really interested in learning more about CORE, you can always check us out at coreismagic.com. So just a real quick recap on where we are. We are preparing for launch. It's brought to you by the Systm. So what is the Systm? The Systm is a social learning experiment. It's tools, community, and guidance to empower the next generation of creative thinkers and leaders to redesign the world. Our objective is to build a platform for purpose-driven thinkers and builders to change the world through design. So our agenda today, we're going to dive into and just recap where we're at. Then we're going to drop in. We're going to dive into the download. We're going to slightly touch on the power of an origin story, but we're really going to dive into what it takes to build your origin story and what the hero's journey is all about. We discussed that a little bit last week, and we got some really great feedback. Shout out to Natasha for, giving us some really actionable feedback. Shout out to Joe, who's on the call with us, really helping us understand like the depth and gravity of the content and how best to help you guys understand how you guys can apply it in your lives, and how you guys can use this framework to, come up with your own superhero identity. So you guys can create your own logos and your own super outfits and be able to step into the world and into your creative experiences with power and force. So just a reminder, Core is the kit that we just recently talked about, but Fire is the next kit that we have coming up, and it's about purpose, values, and skills. And the conversation that we're having now, this co-creation for all of us, using the origin story, is a big component of purpose, and it's going to be a part of the Fire kit. So you guys are actually getting an insider's experience. And what's really special about that is we're doing this together. We're co-creating. So all of your feedback and your experiences, we're taking to heart and we're incorporating it and we're building together. And this is, an example of co-creation together. So thank you guys all for your feedback, for your thoughts, for your comments, and please keep them coming. Super, super important. As you know, we're going to have the Systm Accelerator that's coming up, and invitations will be going out next week. What we'll have in the Accelerator program is we'll be having all of the replays for broadcasts. We will have circles. So this will be almost like training dojos where you guys will be able to experience, what it's like to really develop personas, what it's like to develop priorities, how to develop your skills in facilitation, really learning the nuances of determining great attributes. And then, of course, we'll have our vault, which will have actual live project documentation that we've used, whether it's user journeys for apps that we built, examples of creative briefs that we used with multi-million dollar rebrands, all of the really exciting work that we've done in our experiences. We're going to be able to share with you guys so that you guys can really build your confidence and see that it is really not that hard to execute at the level of some of these agencies and companies. You guys all have the power within you, and we're here to help you guys develop those skill sets. And of course, last and definitely not least is play. Work is play, and I think when we can enjoy ourselves and enjoy each other and really, really find belonging in a tribe like this, is when we can do our best work and we can be most impactful and most importantly, true to ourselves. So, the reminder for pricing is, and we're starting to re-look at the newsletter aspect. So I'm going to skip that for now, but I'm going to talk about the membership and the access, and that's going to be $125 a month, yearly, 1,300 bucks. And then of course the fire kit soon come, and that'll be $350 with a guided course of $505. So now that we've got that business out of the way, let's drop in, y'all. I'd love to hear what your name is, your location, and tell us about a non-anime real world hero of yours and why. So I'll model that, and I'll invite Mary and Joe and Jose onto the stage to join us as we model that for you. And so I'll start. My name is Keone Chong. I'm located in Los Angeles, and a real non-anime hero of mine would be Lewis Hamilton. So I'm sort of a speed mech freak. Built cars with my pops, uh, built racing motorcycles, and I've got a love for speed. And Lewis Hamilton is the de facto fastest man in the world right now in a machine that is not an aeroplane. Uh, what really inspires me about Lewis Hamilton is that he does it in his truest self. He accepts blame when he messes up, and when there are accolades, he attributes them to the team and the people around him that have helped him get there. He's not shy about his beliefs. He's constantly fighting for um, inclusiveness. He's in a industry that is typically incredibly racist and misogynist, and even throughout all of that around him, throughout all the money, he constantly preaches a voice of empowerment and unity and inclusiveness, and it's really something to be said. I actually have his biography on my bedside, and when I get a chance, I always flip through a couple of the chapters. But Lewis Hamilton, he's a real world hero of mine. Um, Jose.
I gave mine to Pape.
Mm.
Uh,
Yeah.
Pape, welcome
Uh,
on stage,
yeah.
bro.
Hello, everyone. Pape here from Panama. I'm actually, I don't know if it's speechless or what, but I just can't think of someone in specific. But I've been like my family and friends, and I feel like the people around me really empower me, and I feel like everyone is, as Keone said, they're trying to be themselves, and I can see how in this, just listening to people telling their stories, like we come back to the hero's journey. We keep seeing the same, like intention, purpose, like finding yourself in the present, figuring out how you came from somewhere to this point and where you want to go. And I feel like just today having a conversation with a friend, it was just, I'm still moved by the conversation, like how honest and vulnerable we were, and how all of our purpose and what we're doing here in this moment, how it connects with these creatives, and how like we just want to make the world a better place. So I would say, like, I see a hero in every single one of you here. I know everyone is trying to be their true self. And in that intention, I find inspiration, and it inspires me to keep moving. So it's not just like, I know I have people I follow that they can be considered like farther away in the process, but I've lately and this week I've been connected a lot with the community around me. So I think, like, I would say I see a hero in every single person that is in this call.
Mm. I'm hearing that the tribe is the hero. I love that. Mary,
Yeah,
would you love to share?
sure. And I'm a huge fan and inspired, a lot by a woman, an American woman named Brene Brown, and mostly. And I'm up in the Bay Area. You guys know where I am, right? I'm in the Bay Area. It's mostly because her views, like on empathy, courage, shame, and leadership, and especially like leading with your whole heart and leading from a place of vulnerability, are real. And like she's just an inspiration to me. I love her talks, her books, the way her approach to parenting. I'm a mom. I have 3 kids, and I feel like when I listen to her, I always learn something new about how to approach leadership and courage and fear, and unlock my own courage and in life. And so I really love her, and I recommend check her out if you don't know who she is.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing, Mary.
Yeah.
And Joe, I'd love to have you come up, brother.
Keone, can you stop sharing real quick so that the videos come up full screen? There we go.
There we go.
Hey everyone. So I'm gonna go with something in the middle, not my fellow community or more aspirational. I would say I'm about to say my grandmother, and she's probably within my little extended family my biggest hero, because of where she came from, what she had to endure to yeah, what she had to endure to come out of the poverty that she found herself, in a third world country, Dominican Republic, in a remote, literally in the middle of nowhere, tin roof, mud floors, and all of that, and always striving to be herself and maximize her potential for the benefit of those around her. So
Thank you so much for sharing, Joe. And I'm going to read off a couple of these. There's a lot of really great ones in here. Let's go. Arsenije, Belgrade, Serbia. Brian Eno, because of his unconventional view on art, especially regarding genius, scenius, and intermedia and generative art. Christina Testana, and she's in Ontario, Canada. And to her, one of her greatest heroes is her late aunt, because to her, she was a Wonder Woman, doing all the things to help her aging parents and being a second mother to her and her sister and brother. She was the one that kept her positive and inspired her to follow her dreams and create her own life and to live her life to the fullest. Beautiful. From Patricia, who's in the Philippines, in Manila. And for her, it's Bethany Hamilton. And she went through so much struggles in her surfing career, and she remained humble and grounded. And she's a badass surfer. I love that. Shaquille, Allen Iverson, Hall of Fame basketball player and forever an underdog, and played his way with heart and his own style unapologetically. Amen. Number 3 was my favorite number for years. Colleen Kyoko, who's in San Francisco. And for her, Chanel Miller has been a huge inspiration for her. She's a writer, an artist, and an activist who found her voice and power in one of the darkest moments of her life. And now she's a bundle of sunshine, and she's constantly inspired by how vulnerable she is and how open she is, regardless of her critics. Marcio Guerrera from Portugal. And he says he has many influences, his parents the most, and his friends, and his wife and daughter. He doesn't have a hero exactly, either cartoon or in real life, but he appreciates the historic figures. And so we'll end with this one, and this one's from Adriana Gonzalez from Mexico City. And that's Gracielle Iturbide. And she is a Mexican photographer that reflects the magics of the now in conduction with light to create unique moments in a very humble way that transcends time. Fascinating. So guys, thank you so much for sharing. And as we move from the download or the drop in, let's move into the download. And the last few weeks we've been talking about origin stories and superheroes. And Mary brought this great quote today, and I think we're all familiar with this song. Did you ever know that you're my hero? You're everything I wish I could be. I could fly higher than an eagle, for you are the wind beneath my wings. And I love that sentiment. I think often we conflate populism and being popular with being a hero. And I don't agree with that. I think that heroes are actually the everyday people. They are the people that are closest to you. They're the ones that inspire you. They're the ones that see you for who you truly are. And they're the ones that give you the confidence to stay on your path and to stay on your journey. And they inspire you to be your truest self in all forms, in all situations, all manifestations and expressions. So, that's the download that I would love for us all to take today and to think about as we talk about building our origin stories. And so, in today's episode, what we're going to talk about is building our hero's journey and the 12 chapters to helping us understand why. Last week, we had a group activity where we hopped into Mural and we talked about each of the 12 steps and how those experiences will provide themes and motifs for our life and really help us to identify our purpose and our values. In that experience, I had some really great feedback from Natasha. And after going through and sort of developing, the sermon for today, in a conversation that I had with Joe yesterday, this is a very deep and powerful concept. And so what I thought we should do is we should actually open up the floor for conversation. I'm going to show a couple of examples of how the hero journey really applies to our lives and how it's this fractal journey that we're constantly cycling through. And then what I'd like to do is I'd like to touch base on each of the chapters and have conversations with you. I'd love for you guys to, share maybe experiences that you have or challenges in understanding, because next week, what I would love for us to do is I would love for us to be able to share our stories. And in that process of sharing the stories, we can really start to identify the themes, and from that, the purpose for our lives, creatively and otherwise. So let's get started. So, building our hero's journey, 12 chapters to helping us understand our why. Origin stories give us purpose and passion. It's our why. And the purpose, cause, and beliefs that we're continuously going through, it needs a narrative. And so, what other better narrative is there than our own journey? So, in general, the hero's journey is 3 acts. It's the departure, where we leave the ordinary world. It's the initiation, where we venture into an unknown world and are transformed. And then it's the return, it's where we come back with mastery, with triumph, with the insights and the skills to be able to share and spread that knowledge. You know, in the conversation that we had with Joe, and Joe, I'd love for you to come on up and talked about, you know, the fractal essence, the cyclical journey of the hero's journey. You know, and I'd love for you to talk about this because this was a conversation that Jose and I had yesterday on our walk where we talked about how in our life we're constantly playing out the hero's journey. And I think that's something important to keep in mind because as we think back on these experiences, they may happen at different points in the hero's journey, but it doesn't matter. The themes and the motifs always remain the same. And I'd love if you could expand on that a little bit.
Absolutely. So I'll just, I think the best way to see this is to look at our own lives. And so the first thing that I think is really powerful is to know where this framework comes from, right? I mean, when I first brushed on and was introduced to Joseph Campbell, it was through a little book called The Power of Myth. And a long time ago, and that book really changed my life, and just seeing the power of myth, the power of story, and seeing that it was his big contribution to humanity really in this hero's journey is to see that we are more alike than we are different. You know, we have always seen our differences as you know, looking from races to continents to time. You know, we think ourselves to be very different from man 5,000 years ago, you know, but technically when looked at it and he found the motifs, you know, and the themes that really are constant beneath all the different folklore and all the different expressions of the human experience. And we are, like Jose just mentioned, we're all that hero. And which is why when he deciphered this into this powerful, you know, a framework, it resonates with every single person so powerfully to the point that myth has moved humanity forward throughout millennia. So understanding that, I think, sets the groundwork, and to understand why it's so powerful and why tapping into it, it really can change our lives, our business, and allow us to tap into that power that truly unlocks our fullest potential and also relates us with our community, with those around us, and connects us with them. So to then bring it out to a practical term, I'll share, like, I love the whole notion of cyclical, because we a lot of time think of this narrative of, oh, the beginning of my life, the end of my life, and I'm, you know, I'm looking at the narrative of the hero developing throughout. Yes, that's happening, but that is also happening in within each. There's the whole cycle is happening cyclically as well, and it's shaping the overall narrative as well. So it's practical, like they say in nature. So I'll give one example. For me, one of the biggest impacts, like I could see this in my life that in a very short amount of time, was early in my career. I was asked to do a project which I thought that I could never do, and I literally had to refuse the whole journey. You know, it was the call was, hey, come, you're assigned this project. It was the biggest account in the company. It was a make or break for our company, and it literally meant everything for all of us. And I couldn't do it. You know, I wasn't worthy of doing that, and I had the refusal, said no to the project, and it took it was seeing that having that calling, having that resistance, then going through all of the, then embracing it, and having all the supernatural aid, literally waking up in the middle of the night, 3 o'clock in the morning, writing 5 pages worth of stuff that just came to me because of all this inspiration, all these different things. The whole journey to then coming out on the other side, sitting next to the CMO of Fortune, it was my biggest project I ever worked on. It was Kohl's. Sitting next to the CMO of Kohl's, telling me how amazing the work was, and like having, before entering into that present, I was literally shaking in a closet, like nervous that I couldn't do this. So it's like then coming out on the other side, having that experience and having learned so much from it, and all happened within a span of a few months, and the whole hero's journey. So that is a way to look at it from a single experience, that can be, the whole journey can be found in a small, and from there, if we look at the motifs, I can learn so much about myself, about what my superpowers were, about who I am, what was my origin story, and then from that extract and see then the bigger patterns, and then see whenever that didn't happen in my life. So I think it's a good to bring it home, make it more practical, more accessible, is to find those stories in our lives where we see the whole thing play out, and not every little chapter, but the big concept of it right there. Yes, that cycle of that journey, we see it, and then we learn who we are when we look at it and create that story.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much for sharing. We really wanted to present the information today in a way that you guys could actually see how this could apply in your life, either at a micro or a macro scale. And so Jose came up with this concept. And so what we did is we put together the hero's journey for based on a lot of experiences that we've had with a lot of folks in our community. And I hope that this kind of resonates with you, but we wanted to kind of show you what that looks like.
This is the hero's journey as expressed by user profile number 1, which is somebody transitioning from freelance to wanting to start their own agency. So if you relate with this, it'd be great for you to share that in the comments. So number 1, and I'll go through it like in play acting. And now we go into theater. Theater, the ordinary world. Oh my God, I'm freelancing at home alone, but there's something missing. Call to adventure. You know what? I should start my own agency. I don't know, but I should start my own agency. That'd be amazing. Then number 3, refusing the call. You know what? Screw it. That's too hard. I got to do a portfolio. I got to do positioning. Number 4, you're Googling and YouTubing and like trying to find some mentorship, and you find Chris Do and Jose Caballera on YouTube. Like, wait, these guys kind of sound like they know what they're talking about. And you start following it, and then you decide, okay, I'm going to do this thing. You cross the threshold and you jump. You say, yes, I'm going to do it. And you do core for yourself, and you make a website, and you update your portfolio, and you're ready to become a quote unquote agency. But then number 6, you get tests and allies and enemies. Launching is hard. There's the self-doubt. There's the fear, anxiety. It's like, you know what? I'm not good enough. I can't really do this. And then you find allies, who refers you, an ally who refers you to a new client that's a lot bigger than what you usually have. So number 7, you begin to approach the inmost cave or the dragon's den, like that, like, ooh, the pitch, the big client pitch. You're like, that's the cave, and you go into it, but you lose. And the ordeal after you lose the proposal and the pitch to another agency is you're not feeling good enough. You're seeking to learn, why did I lose that? And it's just like this whole ordeal of self-doubt and of like, oh my God, after doing all that. And you search like, why did that happen? So the reward, or seizing the treasure, number 9, you call the lost client and you say, hey, we're doing a post interview, and thank you for the opportunity to pitch. We wanted to know, like, what could we have done better to have won this, and who won it and why. And they tell you, and it was such a simple thing. It was like one small thing that they wish they would have known, or that you would have said. So you're like, okay, thank you so much, appreciate it. And the road back is you integrate the feedback, you get better at that, you get back on the horse. You begin like to figure out like how you can do it again better. Resurrection, which is my favorite. Number 11, you pitch a new client and you do it again. And Number 12, the return with the elixir, the boon, or the treasure, the adjustments to your pitch work, and you land your first $10,000 client. That's the hero's journey in, yeah. And then back to step one. Yeah, exactly. That's opposite. Yeah.
It's a cycle.
Because every project is exactly the hero's journey.
Exactly.
So, each chapter of these, really reflects an experience in our lives. And they all represent recurring themes that help determine our values. So in that story, in that experience, there's this quest for mastery, for creative mastery, to become better at the work so that we can become more impactful, so that we can translate our creative value better than before. And the key to each of those chapters they're rooted in an emotion. And, that's why we know like that memory and that experience has meaning. So today, I really want to discuss, like, let's create our own hero's journey. And again, I want for us to have that conversation, sort of looking at, these 6 steps and these 6 steps, the 12 in all of the chapters. So let's start the conversation. And I want to open up the floor, and I'd love to hear some of you guys share about your experiences in the ordinary world, what that was like for you guys, where you guys started in your creative ambitions, when you guys realized that something was missing. And, I'll share. So for me, I realized I started having an awareness of a problem as a child. So I grew up in a very strict household, just because of the amount of achievement that was in my family. And so as a child, we weren't allowed to truly express ourselves, and we weren't allowed to truly understand. And a lot of you that come from third world countries probably understand this, where it's do as I say, not as I do. You're not able to have a conversation. You're not able to understand my thinking and meaningfulness behind it, but you just had to do it. And what I was struggling with is I was like, that can't be how we operate in life and in the world and in relationships. I knew that there was an awareness of a problem, but I felt incomplete and insufficient. And as I grew in my career and as I took on new jobs and as I explored new opportunities, these were still challenges that I was having. Like being able to get past, the status quo and to explore the new world. So I'd love to ask for you guys, would anyone love to come to the stage and share a couple of those experiences? Pape, come on up.
Yeah, I don't want to be the one that is talking, but I mean, if someone else wants to go, I can just, I'm just going to go. Okay, so I remember the first time, and going back to like childhood would be, but it's since it's a cycle, there's two episodes that come here in the hero's journey, and one was when my fear of rejection made me look to find something to adapt to what kids were doing. And it was in Colombia, it was football, playing football. And I sucked at playing football. I wasn't good at it. And I wanted to fit in. And I started trying to, my goal was to join the football team at school and being able to being like, they place you in teams and people choose which kid they want. And I was always the last one. And I wanted to change that. So I started just practicing and playing football, and eventually I learned it. And that happened again when I was trying to learn how to play guitar. And eventually when I came to this true calling of like, I want to become an artist and I want to live from illustration, I think like the cycle started repeating, and connecting from Wednesday conversation about the fake it till you make it. I was building that story, I was faking it. I was I was acting upon an intention. I think that's what's so important when you go back to step one, is to having true alignment with what you want. Because that's when you, if you start the journey by faking it, I understand why the faking it is not in alignment with what we want. But for me, by trying that, I came full cycle to see that I wasn't in the place where I was trying to go. And that made me always, when I went back into the cycle, I was asking myself what I want to do, and hoping for the next time to come back to a place where I felt myself.
Thank you so much for that, Pape. Snaps, snap it up. Patricia, I'd love to have you share. Come on up.
Yes, so I was bullied when I was in grade school because of my skin color. And because of what Jose said about colonial mentality here in the Philippines, if you're not white, you're not accepted, right? If you don't have white skin, if you don't have, that's the thing here. We're all, this is our skin, and they all, I, I remember my, in kindergarten, I wanted to be Cinderella. I raised my hand, and my teacher said, "No, you can't be Cinderella because of your skin color." And that shocked me. I mean, I feel like I was, I that's one of my struggles. But now I've owned my skin color, my hair color, whatever it is. That it doesn't matter where you're from, what color you have. It's all about your heart, the skills you have, and now I'm kind of owning up to my story that this is this is me. This is who I am. Why am I going to change it, right? So that's, I feel like, my origin story.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Patricia. I know that took a lot of confidence, and we're proud of you. And you are incredibly beautiful. Don't let anybody else tell you otherwise. So let's move on to the second chapter. And the second chapter is about the call. And the call is about, excuse me. The call is about when we leave our comfort zone, and it's the increased awareness and the need for change. Um, I want for us to think about a time when we were called to do something, when you could have, or you could have done something, or you could have been something more meaningful, um, and you had never thought about that change before. And it's usually the first time a challenge or problem or adventure is presented to you. And in those times, in those experiences, in those memories, the feeling is that of being like unsettled and uneasy and uncomfortable. Joe shared a little bit about that when he had an opportunity to have one of his largest clients, and how there was an uneasiness about taking on that kind of responsibility. It was like there's like a fear, like of that kind of commitment. So when we look back and we look on our call to adventure, in this case, for some of us, it's the call to start your own agency. I know Shaquille and I have had, a lot of really great conversations about this. Shaquille, you feel like sharing?
Yeah, sure. I was actually, for this section, going to talk about earlier in my journey. But yeah, I can talk about the vision I have for my agency. So I had a couple of like really strong visuals and emotions around creativity before I even knew what creativity actually meant. So this is going back about 3 years. And I just had this feeling of, I want a space to be able to create. I didn't know what that meant. And then, as things tend to happen, the girl I was dating at the time was just like randomly mid-sentence while I was talking to her, "Oh, so like a design studio." And I was like, "Oh, interesting." And this is before I knew anything about design. I was like, oh, interesting. And then that ended up being like the seed for the vision that I've started. And I had this one really key moment with a mentor. This was fall 2019. And so I'm meeting this guy for the first time. We're just having a coffee, just vibing out. I'm telling him my whole story. And then just like all of a sudden he's like, so what if you just happen to sign the lease to opening your design studio on your 30th birthday, which would be like about 2 years from that time. And I was like, oh man, wow, whoa. I didn't even think about that. And that was like the one like 2-second shift that just like changed everything, because that gave me like the permission and the validation, even though I didn't need it. But it just opened my mind to the possibility that, hang on, I could actually do this thing very soon and go very far. And so after that conversation, I ended up getting really focused. So I was running a clothing brand before then, which was like my fun project, but I didn't love running the e-commerce side of things. And then after that conversation, I was like, I don't love running the e-commerce side. Why am I even doing this stuff? I just love designing. So I shut all that stuff down like that day, basically, and got super focused. And then I actually ended up buying Core within a month of that meeting from talking to another guy who was like sort of a mentor figure. So I'll leave it there. Don't want to hog the stage.
It's a beautiful one, Shaquille, and thank you for sharing that. I was saying that I'm an expert at kind of avoiding the call, and I just want to share a story of like repeatedly avoiding the call until you can't avoid it anymore. And this is actually after having my agency or during the agency. A lot of people would call like, you know, famous big people like Kanye, you know, called not himself, but his people. And I'm like, nope, you guys are nuts. We're not doing that. That's so way too crazy. Just fear out of like whatever it was that he wanted to build. Or one day I did it often enough. Like I had this rule of like who I wouldn't accept, you know, new business from. And it was Thomas Keller, who's a famous restaurateur, and the executive producer at the time, who's a foodie, was like, I think you should return that call. And then Mary like chimed in like, yeah, you should definitely return that call. But I just like, oh God, I don't want to like, you know, meet with a chef. We don't do restaurants. And we met at the Four Seasons in Beverly Hills with his general manager, who was also his partner at the time. She was amazing. She told us what they needed. He came down from the room. We didn't know we were going to meet him. And the first words that came out of his mouth were simple. He's super cool, super chill guy, had great vibes. He's like, congratulations on your work. And I'm like, what? You know my work? Like, oh, all right. It was simply master to master acknowledgements. Like, you're here because we like your work and you were highly recommended. So don't be an asshole, you know, like answer the call. And I'm like, okay, oh my God. It like took me aback. That kind of almost like knocked me back on my feet. And we did the work, and it was not easy. It was the hero's journey times 100. But we did a great job, or good enough of a job. It was beautiful, the stuff that we did. And then we got other calls from other people like that, like, you know, Edible Schoolyard, which was an amazing project. And we did an amazing job for another chef, Alice Waters, and that was her nonprofit. And Jamie Oliver, you know, so the calls now kept on coming in for answering that one call and not avoiding it. And then I kept on saying, because then we did Live Earth with Al Gore, then we did, why are all these do-gooders freaking calling us to do their projects? We just want to do big corporate clients and make a lot, or startups and make a lot of money. We don't want to be doing like saving the world. Who wants to save the world? So I was like literally in my evil businessman phase, and I just was annoyed at like all these people calling. And then I realized I was seeing something in me that I wasn't seeing myself. And then the last part of the story, and it's when the call really came through. And I will say, caveat, you must suspend disbelief, because this call came in the middle of an ayahuasca ceremony, and you don't know if that was real or not. So just to be quote, just listen to it as a story in the mythical proportion. My first ceremony, finally it's like, okay, and it's a woman, an indigenous woman, Patricia's color, you know, with Patricia's hair, you know, in the body of a snake. The bottom part was a snake, which I later learned that the Shipibo people who, what my teacher trained with, the snake, the three snakes are their symbol, and it's a symbol of transformation. She was really tall because snakes are really tall, I guess, and she just looked at me and looked down at me and goes, "Are you with me?" And I'm like, "Oh, fuck it." At this point, I can't stop. Okay, all right, I'm here. Let's go. And that was it. And at that point, you know, and I was, by the way, doing ayahuasca with my crypto community in upstate New York, because I answered the call sight unseen. Like one of the early school students called me, said, "You should come see the project we're doing." He worked for Consensus, which is one of the major Ethereum incubators. "You have to come see what we're working on." And I just picked up my luggage. Christo and I had just broken up, and I was just in Canada hanging out, learning how to cook this amazing Ayurvedic food. And I answered the call and came to New York. And now, 3.5 years after that, cryptocurrency, NFTs, all these things that I already kind of learned about, you know, when I was there, it's all blowing up in the creative community, right? So not answering the call sometimes is like you closing the door to your true purpose and to your calling, to the adventure. Keep in mind, it's not easy. The hardest part is the personal growth and transformation that you have to go through as a hero of your own story.
Very deep and prophetic, Jose. Thank you so much for sharing. I'd love to invite Christina up to the stage. Christina, you said that you had a couple stories that you'd like to share.
Hey guys. So I'll keep mine pretty short and sweet, but I'm gonna tie it a little bit back to my early stages in childhood, because when I was little, I had a really hard time with communicating verbally and hearing. So that was because of my tonsils and adenoids. So when I would talk, I would spit and slur, and I got bullied for that in school. So it was very hard to, you know, try to express myself. And I found that drawing and art was my outlet to communicate. It was not easy at the time, and my parents had no idea how to take care of me because I would throw tantrums. I was super frustrated. I always got in timeouts in school because, you know, I was just like this beast in the class, like causing problems. So right then and there, I had to go for surgery to remove the tonsils and adenoids. And then immediately I went to speech therapy. So through the speech therapy, I pretty much learned that I was a visual learner, and they used flashcards to help me learn. So flashcards have visuals on it, illustrations. So it got me excited about art and knowing that that's what the connection was. And that's how I associated with learning. It was my key to learning and understanding the world and how to communicate myself, you know, still through visuals, but now with actual text and speaking, right? Now, I was super thankful for the speech therapy that I went through. It was a couple of years of going through it and also extracurriculums in school. So I got teased a lot for going to special classes. So that really caused a lot of uproar in my like teenage years. And that was very challenging for me, especially being an outcast. Now going into work, I just jumped right into, you know, the norm of getting a 9-to-5 job, stuff like that. And then there was a calling that I experienced in my past job where I felt mentally unwell, and the calling really spoke to, you know, taking care of yourself, going back to your roots And, what was that? That was me, talking about healing and how, therapy is super healthy when it comes to taking care of yourself. And then I just reverted back to this story about me going through the healing journey of just being able to speak and talk, just like how you guys are. So yeah, I want to help mental health therapists, anyone else in the industry who are suffering the same way that I did.
Oh, Christina, thank you so much for that. I know that took a lot of courage, and that's a very powerful why. That's an incredible origin story. And it sounds like you found your superpower.
I think so too. Like, I don't know what would have happened if I didn't get that therapy. I probably would have had to learn sign language. I'm not sure, but it was just what my parents put me in, and I'm lucky that I did. So I just wanted to say thanks to, the therapist and giving back using my art and design skills.
That's awesome. We're honored to have you as a part of the tribe. Thank you so much for sharing.
You're welcome.
So next, we're going to talk about the next chapter, um, which is, oh, we kind of talked a little bit about that, refusing the call. Jose talked about that and his experiences with what that looked like. Um, and for you guys, the feeling that you guys can use to kind of root in that is when you're feeling that denial and you're afraid and scared and resistance. It's like, the commitment. You're like, ugh, we're really gonna commit to doing that thing. Um, but next, the next chapter is where we meet our mentor, and we all have them in our lives. And if we think back, it's, we can usually think of like a teacher or a person that really helped us come up with our confidence, and they gave us advice and kind of led us down the path and the training and helped us to overcome that fear. Shaquille mentioned the mentor that challenged him with the question, in 3 years, if you were to sign a lease for your own design agency, your own design studio, what would that look like? And so when we think about our journey, I think it's very, very important that we think about the mentor. For Christina, um, it was, the therapist that taught you that you were like a visual learner, and that these skills could, you just had to learn it in a different way. It wasn't that you were less than, it was that you just looked at the problems differently. And those perspectives give us power. It's why inclusiveness and having diversity in developing brands and creative is so important, because it allows for you to understand the nuances of different perspectives. So after chapter 4 comes crossing the threshold, and it's about stepping through the door into a new world and committing to change. Um, I'd like to open the door for a little bit of conversation here, and I'd love to hear, like, what was that first creative project, and what was it, and who was it for? It could have been a logo, a website, a product, brand strategy. In Joe's case, um, and that feeling of like opportunity and hope, where like you committed, and like that spark of ambition. And I can share, for me, uh, my very first mentor that really aligned my purpose, that I'd really been searching for a very long time, was the dean of advertising at Art Center, Tom Cordner. And he had come into Apple at the time, and I was working with the business team. And he would come in occasionally just to like shoot the shit. And he was like, "Hey, Keone, what's going on? Let's talk social media. Let's talk branding." And I always thought that it was strange that he would just come in just to hang out and talk about it with me. Um, but I was like, "Hey, I'm getting paid to have these great conversations. Let's do it." Apple pays real well. And you know, I forget the conversation that we were having. And like halfway through a sentence, he just stopped me and he was just like, "Keone, what are you doing here, man? Like, you are far too smart to be working for a company like this. Like, you need to go out start an agency, do something creative, go break something, go make something messy. Like just get out and go do something. And I did. You know, a month later, I reached out to a couple of, and you know, they're incredible friends now. But at the time, they were freelancers that I'd hired to help me brand a restaurant that I was running a few years prior to working at Apple. And that experience of confidence and like understanding him seeing the value that I could have was all the impetus that I needed to cross that threshold. So let's open up the door for conversation and let's see, you know, what you guys have. And let's see, Hania, you've got a great story. Bjorn, we haven't heard you share. Would you like to come up and share, brother?
Unmute. Um, I mean, I don't really know where to begin.
Well, where does it make sense for you? Where do you feel like?
I mean, I always knew I wanted to do some kind of creative art, but I never could decide what. Like I think I knew I wanted to be a graphic designer in high school, but I grew up really poor and I never had the money to go to a legitimate school that had like design programs. So I just went to a junior college, which was a great junior college. It's one of the most esteemed in the country, Santa Rosa JC. But I ended up dropping out of that. I moved to Sacramento. Totally screwed up my life there. My mom passed away. That was one of the catalysts for me to move. Was I just had to get away because I was always taking care of my mom. And I was just mixed up with a bunch of bad shit in Santa Rosa. And I was super tired of being there because I grew up there. And then I moved to Sacramento, got a job there, and just kind of fell into the same trap of bad people and drugs and everything. And after my mom died when I was 20, I just kind of went off the deep end. Like didn't really care about my family or living or whatever, and just ended up doing a bunch of stupid shit with bad people, went to jail, had to go back, live with my dad in Santa Rosa. I was lucky to get my court case transferred counties. So then I got back into school when I was working, had to do like 1,000 hours of community service instead of going back to jail. So I was like going to the JC again, doing community service and working a job. And I met my wife at the JC in a color class. So that was cool. And that was 2008. And we've been married since 2013. So then I transferred into Sonoma State. They had an art program because I was like, oh, graphic design is so commercial. Like, I want to be like a real artist. So like I went to art school and, but it wasn't exactly the most prestigious art school. Like it's just a BA in studio art. I was like older than everybody and I was like, I need to get out of here and like get a job. Like I'm almost 30. Like, so I skipped out on the BFA and couldn't land a job. so I was like working back in construction. So it was just like all these, you know, step forward, step back things. And then after about a year of being back in construction, you know, it was super hard. Like, you know, me and my wife almost split up. And it was like, we'd been married for 2 years then. This is 2015. And then I got a job at EO Products and I found them and I was like, oh my God, this place is so cool. Like, you know, it's a B Corp and they're privately or independently owned. And, you know, they're all about people over profits. And I was a production artist there. And when I thought that production art might lead into graphic design, but it's not necessarily the case. Some people are like lifers at production art, and it was just not what I wanted to do. And it was cool for about a year or two because you get to learn about all the processes with printing. And most people, you know, don't know that. They're just all about, you know,
I don't have an address because I live in an RV on the street.
Digital. So yeah, it was just like I got kind of stuck there. We did like a big rebrand for their EO line, and that was killer. Like physically, like I got shingles on my face. Like that's how hard I was working. And I just felt super underappreciated there. And they kept moving us like around, like we moved offices every year. Like it was like, okay, well, you're going to be in this area now and you're going to be working in this room. And it was just, there was no cohesion or strategy or leadership there. And then I think 2019, Jose came in to work with us, or maybe it was 2018, I can't remember. And he kind of just like rallied the troops and got everybody back together into like one working system. Like brought together sales, marketing, design, I think. And it was all under one marketing umbrella, which was cool. And, you know, it was so cool to meet somebody that like actually went to like a prestigious design school. And, you know, it was crazy. It was like meeting like a rock star or something. And so I was like, you know, I want to learn all these things, but I don't think I'm capable enough. So he kind of instilled confidence in me to become or think of myself as a real designer, and showed me a lot of neat ways to do things and systems. And his partner Jeff was super cool. I still think about that guy. And yeah, it just opened up a lot of doors for me, and kind of instilled the confidence to go freelance. And I mean, luckily I am blessed. I have a beautiful, smart, awesome, lovely wife, and she's an ICU nurse right now. So like I'm financially able to do it. Like I'm not like struggling, tall white guy. So, you know, I'm not like under socio and economic pressures. And so yeah, I'm just trying to build my own small agency. Like I have this, we just moved to the Bellingham about a year ago, well, 6 months ago, but now we just bought a house. So I got this studio space I need to set up. It's pretty huge. Like I can fit like probably 10 queen size beds in here. So I want to get it all set up and get my portfolio redone and keep continuing the hero cycle, and try to launch pretty soon here. So
that's awesome, Bjorn. Thank you for sharing your story. That is epic. And this community, every single one of the people here, you know, from Keone to Shaquille to Mary to Joe, we're here to support you. We're here to guide you through the journey. I saw a beautiful video of Hanya and Cliff working on Hanya's strategy and supporting each other. And I just want to remind everyone, you know, like in the t-shirt conversation that's happening, the first t-shirt is going to say, "We are the system," because it's not about me. It's not about, you know, it's about each and every one of us elevating each other forward. So I am Bjorn. I am Keone. You know, remember the customer profiles. When we created the customer profiles, and I talk about every customer profile is actually, every co-creator profile is a version of you. The same struggles you had, maybe at a different time. You know, at some points in the history, you're Luke Skywalker. At some points, you're Obi-Wan. Some points, you're Chewbacca. Some points, you shot first and it wasn't Guido. For those of you who are not Star Wars fans or know the lore, that is Han Solo. Nobody's Jar Jar. Yeah, exactly.
Nobody's Jar Jar.
Nobody's Jar Jar. I don't mind being Jar Jar, actually. If you watch the cartoon on Disney Plus, what's it called?
Clone Wars.
Yeah, you turned me on to it, Keone. Anyway, but I just want to not only commend and thank you for sharing your story, but really just let you know that we're here to support you through that. So,
thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, whatever you need, because remember that it's not about the fancy school you went to. It's not about, you know, any of that. We're going into the 21st century is going to be less about the prestige of the 20th century institutions that build us, but about the connection about the connections between each other at a systemic level across countries, across, you know, colors, across tall white guy, you know, short Filipino girl. I think you're married to a Filipino woman. Is that right?
Yeah, she's a short Filipino woman.
There you go.
Yeah.
So
dark skin.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's about we. So thank you, man.
Thank you.
Thank you, man. That was so powerful. You know, we got to chapter 5. I'm gonna end on chapter 6 because Bjorn really, you know, shared a big part of his journey and how it was a test. It was, you know, really understanding you know, this part of your journey, which is where you're in a new world and you're meeting new allies, you're confronting enemies, and you're learning the rules of the new world, and you're experimenting with the new conditions. And you know, at times you've got homies like Jeff, who helped you in that process, and Jose, you know, who's, you know, definitely was a mentor and, like, you know, gave you the impetus for your potential. But you also meet like the haters, you know, in the process. And sometimes the haters can be society. Sometimes it can be the world around you. Sometimes they can be in your own family. And at times it'll leave you like disoriented. But you're learning, you know, like that's the path. So, you know, it's 12:20. I'm going to open the circle back up and showcase, you know, the full circle of the journey. And I like to spend like the last 10-15 minutes just in open conversation. What we'll do next week is we'll dive into chapter 6 through 12. But I'd love to hear just what everyone's thoughts were on today's conversation and discussion, and how this is resonating with you guys, and if it, you know, really feels like you guys are starting to understand how this applies to your life and to your journey and to your purpose. And Natasha, if you're listening and you're able to join in, I'd love to hear you, because you know, this was really inspired a lot. This conversation was really inspired a lot by your feedback. And Madhurima, how about you hop on stage? Why don't you join us and share your thoughts and feelings and your
For
story?
sure. Hi everyone. So I'm Madhurima. I'm a soul coach, and this journey started in a very weird way. My journey was basically a very topsy-turvy, curvy kind of a thing. It was not a straight line at all. I started like I was working in a lot of startups, but it wasn't really clicking for me. So as a side hustle kind of a thing, I started an anxiety tips kind of a page called Hello Anxiety, my old friend, on Instagram. Yeah, it was it was super
Clever.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what actually happened was it was going really great, but COVID hit us, and that brought up a lot of kind of you know things that I've stuffed deep down. It had all come up, and I had to kind of quit Instagram for a couple of months. But then I was like, okay, yeah, gotta get back onto the game. And when I did, like, I started to get a lot of kind of calls from people who wanted to share their anxiety journey as well and wanted some tips. But I realized that I was not really the right person to deal with it, because anxiety is mental health in general is a very fragile thing, having experienced it myself. So I took another break, and then finally I came up, like, I connected with my spiritual journey basically, and I kind of pushed it aside because coming from India, you see a lot of fake gurus, you see a lot of negative media surrounding spirituality. So it was just like I mean, I was cringing away from spirituality. It was something that I'd learned from my dad and stuff, but there was a big chunk of my life where I was just cringing away from it. And then I think COVID gave me the time to kind of finally reconnect with myself. And I was like, okay, yeah, let's get into this game. And yeah, I redid my entire brand. Changed everything, like built from scratch. And I think it was recently during one of my, I'm beta testing my coaching program, and it was during one of those calls with my client that she told me how much she has grown spiritually. And that kind of really hit home, because I was like, yeah, like, this is what I was meant to do. Like, this is what I was put on this earth to do. And it was so, so amazing, I think, because it was something that made me really connect with myself again. So I think that is something that I'm going through in my hero's journey right now. And I just wanted to share that.
Madhurima, thank you so much. Snaps all
You're
around,
most
y'all.
welcome.
That was powerful. So let's dive into to our upload. And as we talk about the upload for today, um, what I'd love to hear from you guys is one takeaway from today's conversation that you're really excited to share and carry with you to the weekend, into next week. I know for me, um, the thing that's really powerful about this conversation is we can really begin to see how this journey really unites all of us. Like, no matter where you come from, no matter what you're doing, what your skill is, what you're building, we all go through the hero's journey. And in understanding how we fit into our own journey, we can really understand how we have the power to transform ourselves as long as we keep moving forward. uh Finding Nemo, the classic quote was just keep swimming. We just got to keep swimming and just keep moving. And we keep doing that, one foot next to the other, one foot in front of the other. um, we can find transformation, and we can find our path for growth. So that's what my takeaway is. Let me hop into the chat and see what everyone else is saying. Mm. So I'll start sharing some of these. Um, let's see. From Colleen, the hero's journey. The hero's journey is a constant circular process. And as soon as you complete one, there's always another one waiting for you. Absolutely. And from Arsene, how much does sharing our story can connect with others? And like you really hit on an important principle, because this is how we connect with our clientele. This is how we can find the design projects that really resonate with us. And this is how we can find the co-creative partners that really respect our values. When they can connect with our stories and our values, we can find ourselves in a really special place. You know, Jose, you know, has the example with EO. If Jose wasn't Jose, that project would have never come into fruition. It was because of who he is and the values and the work and the journey that he's been on. So absolutely. Um,
Just one thing that I, to for me, what I'm taking away, but I also what I want to make sure and leave, because that's the lesson from, you know, I am Jar Jar. You know, like we make fun of Jar Jar, right? And like, you know, nobody wants to be Jar Jar, but he's himself, right? He's super authentic, and he definitely. Again, if you watch the cartoon version on Disney Plus of what's it called?
Clone Wars.
Clone Wars, yeah. Jar Jar's a superhero in Clone Wars, and they make fun of him being obnoxious. So I really saw myself as Jar Jar a lot, and as obnoxious, and in the journey of, now that I'm learning more from this exercise as we do it, I'm going to kind of really go deeper into it so that it's really authentic on my more recent journey, which I was saying last week, and a lot of the things that challenged me over the after choosing to make this move to start the school and to do all this, etc. I definitely now can tell the story with this framework that Keone, that you, Joe, and you know the team is really putting together for us through FIRE. But what I wanted to leave with, you know, and as we all change our names in that exercise to I am Jar Jar, I am other, that it's okay to show up into the world authentically as yourself, and that will actually open doors for you that you never thought were available, and that's what people are waiting for. You know, Thomas Keller, when he said, you know, congratulations on your work, and the acknowledgement of it, I use that all the time now when I say to people, congratulations on your work. You know, Colleen's helping us out with the design of the system, and you know, I reviewed her portfolio and I gave her feedback, and you know, I love her and I love her work, and you know, all of us doing that for each other and sharing our stories authentically and connecting is really the beginning of the real power that we have as individuals and as a collective, and that will get you everything, you know, that you seek and you desire. It's not about anything other than learning and getting to that point to where the joy of being who you are and the gift of being who you are through working together with each other to manifest that into the world becomes what provides traction to all of your ideas and to the things that you want to do and to your purpose. So thank you, Keone, for just opening up this journey for us and guiding us through it. That's my takeaway.
I would like to add to that, Jose, because I think it captures the essence, and what I'm taking away is in connecting with ourselves, we're able to connect with others. And unless we connect truly with ourselves, can we truly connect with others? That's my takeaway.
And I resonate a lot with that, because I feel like today when I was listening to everyone's story, it kept like the gut feeling, and you know, you have your thoughts and then words and then how you feel. But when I was truly listening from the three of them, but my feeling was just like, and the memory came by, I was just going back to reminding like who were my mentors, who were my heroes. And I how I said at the beginning, like I see each of you as heroes is because it's also circular, because in this moment we're all in different stages of the hero's journey, and it's so nice to being able to come into one place. And that's why for me the hero's journey is like Interstellar, the movie, like time. It's just like a black hole, and you can get through it because like past, present, and future is all connected in this single like instant. And it's just, my empathy is through the roofs, and I'm feeling like a lot. And it's been like a really, I've been feeling a lot today, and it's been this type of conversations all day and all week. And it's just like, I'm just thankful. Thank you all, like seriously.
Thank you so much for that. So as we outro, y'all, I'm going to read a couple of these incredible comments.
Can I hop in?
Absolutely.
Yeah, Mauricio, before you start, everybody should share their insights, what they got out of it in the chat, so that Keone can read them on the outro.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I'm not really gonna share, let's say, my voice. It's something that I don't talk much sometimes in the calls, but I do listen, and I talk with many people here. And I'm loving to getting to know people here in the group. And so there is something I've noticed that hasn't been addressed, several things. And I would kind of like to extend a suggestion for you guys to perhaps open or to be open to the idea to receive feedback in an anonymous way. Because I've heard many people have certain, I don't think anybody has like a big issues with the ways things have been done, or just a lot of small things that they've thought across the length of this project, but they haven't been able to share them. And they've across time they've gotten big. And I love like when Jorn said compare you, Jose, to a rock star, because I think many of us do. And perhaps it's out of that people don't like to say certain things, but I've kept hearing several people tell me the same things, and followed by, don't tell anybody I told you this. And they're not big stuff, right? But I think based on what you're doing, because you're asking a lot of feedback from us, I think there's a good chunk of feedback that's being left out because people don't want to maybe hurt you or something. Like they all look up to you three. And yeah, just kind of wanted to put that out there because I've heard it way too many times, and I kind of felt that I had to do something about it.
Well, Mauricio, thank you so much for your bravery, man. So
you're always, and what I was going to say is you're always welcome to directly give me the feedback. I've heard the feedback from many of you via Facebook. I've had conversations with many of you. So I'm always open to it. And if you don't feel comfortable, we can do anonymous feedback. And remember that this is an experiment and that we're all trying our best to make these things work.
Yeah.
But and if you don't feel comfortable giving me the feedback, you can give it to Mary, you can give it to Keone. We've done that, and I heard it, and I hear it from Mary. I am far from perfect. This is far from perfect. It's super messy, and I am making attempting every day to ensure that the community and that all of the issues get addressed. Yeah, so thank you for that. Whatever the feedback is, feel free to give it. You can give it anonymous. We can set that up. And also you can share it with Keone and with Mary.
Yeah, thank you for that, Mauricio. So in our outro, I want to read through some of the comments and what a lot of folks are getting from this. Sergio, good to see you, brother. As he said, he misses us all with his heart, and it was amazing to see us all today. He learned that refusing to answer the call is a crucial part of the hero's journey. From Patricia, our stories are powerful, and getting to know each other beyond the screen is so beautiful. To hear the story from each of us and showing us in our authentic selves. Love you all. From Hania, every day we learn more from the journey. The point of view changes, and our aim is to close the circle, to learn, to perform, and to continue. From Cassie, for her, this session helped her realize that there doesn't yet have to be just one person that serves as your mentor. It can be a blend of many people into one person in order to streamline the story. Absolutely. And Mary reminds us that the hero's journey is an agile process. It's fractional and it's like prototyping our life. What we do well, what we learn, and what we need to improve on, and new things to try are part of the key to evolve the journey along the way. It's almost as if she was reading your mind, Mauricio. From Christina, she learned to be brave and to inspire, to listen to the calling and trust in what the universe is telling you. Her late aunt was all about being authentic. Yay, Colleen! Jar Jar, who said, when I thought I was running away from myself, I realized I was running towards my true self. Beautiful. And for Emily, she loved this exercise and hearing everyone's stories. Thank you all. And from Sergio, and we'll end it on this. Oh, actually, you know what? We've got like 62 messages. We've got a little bit of time. All right. We'll give a few more minutes. Sergio didn't want to leave the meeting without publicly saying that I loved Hania's clothes today. From Shivana, this is such a beautiful community. Thank you all for being you. You guys all inspire. From Natasha Scott, today's session has been an exercise in listening, empathy, and vulnerability, and shared experiences. I never fail to be amazed by how many commonalities I find in other stories. And she's feeling grateful for all that's shared. From Madhurima, she really loved the question that, like Pape said, it made her remember who her mentors were and what was the call. And she also really connected with Jose when he talked about rejecting the call until you can't anymore. From Bjorn, every time I tell my story, it gets easier, and I learn insights from the past that gain your future. So I don't know if you were on the session that I had when I talked about finite and infinite games. When an individual is playing an infinite game, meaning they're not looking to compete for tactile things like money or resources, things that occur within a closed game with closed players and like limited rules. But when you start to play with boundaries, when you start to explore the universe, when you start to think horizontally, what we learn is that the key to seeing the potential and the futures actually lies in our path. And it's our ability to look at our past and to continue to reevaluate what the past meant and what its significance was and what the stories were really about and the themes that come out of them, the trials and tribulations. What were the lessons that were in them? When we continue to reevaluate them, it allows for us to see our future in multiple ways, in the multitudes of potentials. So that was beautiful, man. Thank you for sharing. From Mary, she appreciates the radical feedback and prototype many different ways and consensus. It's one of her favorite things to practice. She's here to help. From Jar Jar again, to be grateful for everyone that we cross paths with because they teach you something about yourself. And through sharing, we heal and co-create. Your story is worth sharing. From Sergio, the only things he doesn't like about this is we're not together to go and eat some tequeños together. Man, I'm hungry, bro. From Shaquille, nothing has to be perfect, including how we lay out our story over the hero's journey. Mary, who says she loves us all and reach out to her anytime. She needs to go now, but she wants for everyone to have a great weekend.
Mary's the perfect person to give feedback. She's known me for 22 years, and she's told me all the things. and yes, we've had many fallings out and many getting back together, and it's been a hero's journey. Keone, there's a request for the music to be a little louder.
Yeah, let's bring that up. So the song that we're listening to right now is actually called Motions, and it's by Marcio Brown. And it is a perfect way to end this call. We are all in motion. The key is that we're in a regenerative motion. We're learning and growing consistently. The only thing that holds us back is our mindset. And if we can remember anything from a hero's story, is that we are all heroes to ourselves. And as long as we are better tomorrow than we were today, we're on the right path. And so with that, thank you guys all. See you guys next week. And remember, you guys are powerful, you guys are loved, and you guys can do anything you put your mind to. Peace, y'all.
I will stay today till the end. I'm always asking myself if something else happens when I go.
Yeah, you always have to have the last word. Somebody's got to have the last word. Thank you, Keone. Thank you, Patricia, for your support and help and helping us produce.
Of course, anytime.
Marcio, lots of love. Juan Manuel, thank you for coming. Dig in the thumbnail, Michael Stancaro.